shalom, my friends, shalom, my enemies. And turns out over the past month or two, I've got more enemies than I ever could possibly have imagined. But ladies and gentlemen, we have a friend coming to the neighborhood, joining us in a moment. And he's someone who has been on this program more than a decade ago, but I didn't get to talk to him. This saddens me. But today I will, and I do, because Steve Wolf is with us here, bidding us a good shalom this Saturday. Let me tell you a little bit about Steve Wolf. Back in the day, even though he's still doing this, he was a stunt person. He did special effects, explosions and fires and things like that. Well, he's still, of course, doing that. But now he's putting that scientific knowledge of how to create destruction and disaster in stopping destruction and disaster. But let me tell you something else about this. If you were to read this man's resume in terms of things he does and has done in his life, he went to Columbia University where he studied Shakespeare, nothing to do with what he's doing, but he's also been an EMT, a scuba instructor, a firearms instructor, this makes sense, a private investigator, a pyrotechnician, a film director, a TV producer, a writer, an actor, a publicist, and a preschool teacher, which is really interesting when I wonder if the firearm instruction was for preschool kids. We're going to find out. Ladies and gentlemen, won't you? Well, and he even ran a school for dyslexic children, which is amazing. Anyway, won't you please welcome to the neighborhood, Steve Wolf. Shalom, Steve. How you doing?
Good morning, chatbot. Shalom.
I am not possibly. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Rabbi?
Thank God, I'm doing all right, and the whole world hates me, but it's all right, because I have you here in the neighborhood, because you reconnected with Dave, who is the producer of this program, just a day or two ago in a conference where he first met you, like all those years back, to promote what you're doing. Now, before you were promoting that, you were going around to schools and giving lectures and talks. As a matter of fact, you were the winner twice of Time Warner's Science Presenter of the Year Award. Yay. But now you're working on something else. What is it?
Boy, I sound I'm exhausted just listening to all the crap.
I exhaust myself listening to me, yes.
Yeah, well, what I'm working on now is trying to figure out how we're going to get this wildfire problem under control. I live in Boulder, Colorado right now. And one day I looked out the window and it was nighttime, but it was bright as could be out there. And I said, what the heck's going on? 3 towns were on fire at once. Superior, Louisville, Marshall. It was called the Marshall Fire. Right. And 1,000 homes burned down in just a matter of just a few hours.
How long ago was this? This was when?
This was 2 years ago, this coming New Year's.
Right.
So this really dispelled the idea that there's a fire season, right? If you could have a fire like this, the last day of December. And this fire was driven by 100-mile-an-hour winds. And in my special effects work, I did a lot of work with fire and a lot of work with wind. And I went and I asked these fire guys the next day, I said, what happened? What are we going to have to do to get these fires under control? And they said, Steve, it would take a hurricane to put these fires out. And I said, I'll be right back. And I went and I gathered my special effects team and some firefighters and raised $3.5 million. And we built a hurricane on wheels for the fire department. And what we're doing is we're using giant jet engines like this, mounting them on trucks, and then feeding fire retardant into the exhaust so we could blow the retardant at the fire at several hundred miles an hour.
Now, I already have so many questions. First of all, is it really right to use retarded people for this purpose? I mean, I think we should probably not do this. It's I mean, nobody misses them. No, but why is fire quote unquote retardant better than just, I don't know, water?
Well, water's good too. The thing about water is that water has a self-love affair, right? Water molecules love to hang out with each other. That's why if you put water in a drop, the drop will sit there like this, defying gravity rather than going like this. because these molecules are so strongly attracted to each other. So if you want those water molecules to separate and actually penetrate dry leaves, dry brush, homes, whatever, and get onto the fuels and get absorbed in the fuels, then you have to lower the surface tension within the water molecule. And you do that with surfactants, which is just a fancy word for soap, essentially. And that's why we put soap into laundry detergent, so that the water dissolves the dirt in our clothes rather than just clumping up to itself. So retardants need not be anything more than
So if you have a
soap,
stove
basically.
oven thing and you have that canister, the extinguisher, that's mainly
Yeah.
soapy suds?
Well, for a fire extinguisher, they use different chemicals. So to have a fire, Rabbi, you have to have 4 different things, right? You have to have fuel, which is anything that burns. You have to have oxygen. You have to have heat, and you have to have a chemical reaction.
Well, first of all,
And so
you're leaving out God. You have 5 things. You need God.
5 things, right? Is the spark. That's what makes it, right?
But
So to take away fire, you have to just remove any one of those things. So most fire extinguishers work by removing the oxygen. They have an oxygen snuffing compound. They put out something in the air that displaces the oxygen. Even steam will do that. As long as you drive the oxygen away, you get rid of the fire. Now, if you have a hurricane, you can physically blow the fuels away, right? That means you're blowing away the leaves, the trees, the debris, all that stuff. So once there's nothing left to burn, no fire, right? So you could literally blow fuels out. When you shoot the retardant on there, it turns into steam, and that displaces the oxygen. And then if you ever got out of the shower and you're wet and there's windy,
yeah,
now that happens too, but also you get cold. And so you get this thing called evaporative cooling. And evaporative cooling, you're reducing the heat. So when you reduce the heat in chemicals, it slows down that chemical reaction that we call fire.
When I'm sitting too long in the theater or the movie or something, I piss my pants, and first it's warm, and then it gets cool very quickly down there.
Yes, that's right. So you get that evaporation, right? And then, I'm pretty sure your parents taught you how to put out fire on your first birthday. What do they do?
Well, no,
you put a candle in front of you and you go like that, right? And so using convection, you blow the heat away, you disrupt the fire, and it goes out.
But the problem is, most fires, and the problem with fires in places that are dry, like Colorado, like Canada, for crying out loud,
yes,
is that it is blowing. Wind is blowing, but the problem is it takes one tree that's on fire, it blows a branch onto another tree. The wind is the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, so we're fighting wind with wind. You've got wind coming at you at 30, 40 miles an hour. You blow back at 250 miles an hour. Who's going to win?
But aren't you still blowing in another direction, or with fire retardant?
You're blowing it, but you get out in front of the fire. And you blow the fire back over the area that's already been burned, where there's nothing left to burn. So you can do that. You could also just lay out retardant in front of the fire very aggressively, because you're blowing it out there with jet engines. You could cover several hundred feet at a time with retardant out in front of the fire. When the fire gets there, it can't burn anymore.
Why is it so hard to, as we've said, we've sent probes. You should pardon the expression, probes up to Venus, and then we've got men on the moon. Why is it we still have these enormous wildfires that we can't figure out? Well, just cover things with water and retardant and air and blow. Why can't we control these things?
Well, we can. The thing is that we haven't yet.
Why?
So why? I don't know. Why does it take the post office so long to get your mail to you, but FedEx can get it there overnight? So, maybe it's the difference between a government approach to something and a private approach to something.
The Elon Musk flying into the air as opposed to waiting for NASA to kind of. No, I'm not kidding. I'm saying this.
Right. No. Right. Yeah. So, and God bless firemen, and they do the best they can with the tools they've got. It's just that the tools they've got in many cases are 1,000 years old. They're armed with what I describe as medieval gardening tools, right? You got a rake, you got a shovel, maybe you got an axe, I mean, what is that going to do against, 200-foot wall of fire?
But
Nothing.
how do you bring your hurricane idea to a remote place that may not? Because that was one of the problems with Canada, is
Yeah,
that it wasn't like you could just drive a bunch of fire engines up to where these fires were burning. What can
sure.
you do a hurricane from? I mean, that sounds almost contradictory. Can you do a hurricane from the air?
Well, you can drop one of these trucks in. So I'm using logging trucks as my base vehicle because unlike fire trucks, which are, referred to as pavement queens, they can only go where there's a road. Logging trucks are made to get up into the woods. So it's a much better base vehicle, right? If a tree can grow there, a logging truck can go there. And so that's how we're delivering the jet engine technology. Now, there's places where the forest cover is going to be so dense we can't go. You're going to need airplanes for that, or the slope is so high that a tree could not get there. But the real thing we're worried about with the wildfires is the destruction of things that we built and that we insure: homes, hospitals, military bases. There's roads at all these places.
Oh,
If we have to prioritize, right, we want to make sure first we don't burn down any nuclear plants or any hospitals or any schools,
yeah,
right? And then way down the list is the woods themselves. And that's important because, trees are nature's natural carbon sequestration technology, right? Most of the weight of a tree is made from carbon that it's sucked out of the air from CO2. So as long as that tree is sitting there, that carbon is safely sequestered, as they say, like the jury on the recent case. But when the tree burns up, all that carbon gets put back up into the air, and it's sooty, and soot is dark. Dark things hold heat more, right? They heat up more in the sun. So not only you're putting back this CO2 in the air, which acts as a blanket that holds heat in, but you're putting this soot in the air, which increases the heating of the atmosphere. Plus, you're just burning, hundreds of thousands of acres. That puts more heat in the atmosphere. So it's probably no coincidence, right, Rabbi, that the hottest month ever on record last June, July, happened to coincide with the burning of millions of acres in Canada. Well, the heat's got to go somewhere.
Well, let me ask you. I never also understood this of
Go ahead.
what they do where they do controlled fires. This I
Yes.
never understood. Like, hey, how do we fight forest fire? How do we stop it? Oh, I know. Let's set some fires. Like a
Right.
perimeter. Why not just have a perimeter of retardant? Why would you
Well,
set
yes.
fires to stop fires?
Right. So first of all, we should not call it a controlled fire because that might imply that we actually control it. It's called a prescribed fire now, but they do get out of control. So to call it controlled, like the giant fire in New Mexico,
Yeah.
that came right up on Santa Fe, that fire, which took many, many homes and cost lives. That was a prescribed burn that the
Got out of control.
government was doing, got out of control because those two
Is it the
do it.
idea
So
that
yes, you just define your fire area, and then
yeah,
you lay out a 200-300 foot swath of retardant around it to contain it the best you can, because you also get something called ember cast. This is not a new technology for disseminating embers on the internet, but ember cast is what they call when, the trees release embers, the winds deliver those embers, so, 40, 50 miles away. And then that starts a new fire somewhere else.
that's what I never understood this idea of like, because it occurred to me, okay, so a fire burns, but it's still, there's going to be desiccated trees that are
Yep.
just burned to ash. There's like trees with no leaves on it. Those can still burn. Like if a new fire comes at that tree, it's going to burn the rest of what's there. I never understood any of this. I still
Well, if you've made fires, in the fireplace, and you start with a little kindling and you crumple up a New York Times, and then you put the big logs on top, because if you're burning fuels where you have a lot of surface area to a little bit of mass, like a piece of paper, a twig, right? That surface area can absorb heat and ignite faster than the log itself, right? If you hold the lighter to the log, you're just going to burn your fingers before you get the log to catch, right? So the same thing with a tree. the trunk is the hardest part to catch. And that's why even after the fires come through, you still see a lot of trunks standing. But what's burning, right? What's actually conducting the heat to that tree in the first place to start the ignition is the leaves and the small twigs on it. So when the fire comes through, it's being basically, running through this paper trail of leaves really, really quickly. Sometimes faster than 100 miles an hour. So, yes, you could get that trunk to reignite, but it would be pretty hard.
I just want, wow. Okay, by the way, we're talking with Steve Wolf here. Now, Steve, I remember you did have a book about what you did, more about the stunt stuff, because we talked a lot about the fire. What was, kind of remind me the name of the book that you
the latest book was The Secret Science Behind Movie Stunts and Special Effects.
Secrets. Is that still available?
Still around, it's a popular book with kids.
Yeah, because if you want to go back and hear Dave's interview with Steve about a decade ago, it talks a lot about the stunts. And you worked on movies, big Hollywood. Like, what is the biggest stunt that you ever had to create, pyrotechnic or otherwise, or a big car chase or whatever it was?
The biggest stunt was trying to get paid once after I had done a movie. But
oh, come on, you can bitch. What film?
All right, so she's dead now, so we can talk. I worked on a Whitney Houston video, "I'm Your Baby Tonight."
Wow.
And the director, what a piece of work.
Or who is he alive? Who is he?
I have no idea. And if he's not, I'm not going to lose any tears. We had this effect we're going to do in there where Whitney Houston's supposed to walk up to a mirror and put her hand through it. Now, this is pre-CGI, pre-digital everything, right? So we did this effect by making a pool of liquid mercury. And then the idea was that Whitney would be over it, and then she could just push her hand down into the mercury. It would look like she was pushing her hand through a mirror if you put the camera above. Well, we ran out of time on that shoot. They didn't get to that shot in the studio. And they said, "All right, well, if you could just bring your liquid mercury, we're going to be filming out under the bridge by the East River. And we'll just do it over there as a pickup shot." And it's like, no, you will not put 100 pounds of mercury where if it leaks, it's going to go right into the river and, pollute it for 1,000 years. They're not doing it. And this director comes over and he smacks me in the face. Says, "Where did we find this guy? Why can't we get someone to cooperate with us?" Like, screw yourself, buddy. So
did you sue him?
I didn't sue him. Well, what are you gonna do?
Did you punch him back at least or something? Did you?
No. But in the next scene, they needed hoses to wet stuff, and they hadn't anticipated this. And I had a couple, 30 hoses on my truck, and they said, "Oh, can we borrow some of your hoses?" So sure you can. They're $500 an hour each. How many would you like? And they said, "What are you talking about? They sell these at Home Depot for $29. I said, "Well, if you want to wait till 7 hours till Home Depot opens, you're welcome to." So good. What goes around comes around, right?
Let me ask you. So
I have worked with a lot of good stars. I worked with Tom Cruise. He was absolutely amazing to work with.
Well, how was Whitney a bitch, or was she very nice? And
Whitney was very nice, and she was struggling with addiction at the time.
And go figure, she died of mercury poisoning. So
she did not, because she never put her hand in it. It was my hand in the video. I stunt doubled for Whitney Houston.
No, I'm sorry, Steve. Why? I'm afraid of putting an old thermometer in my mouth for fear that I'll break and get mercury in my face.
Sure.
You would put your hand, and I guess to practice this stunt, you did. You put your hand in mercury.
I did. So
terrified.
So some people, they told me it would cause hair loss. What do they know, right? So mercury is really dangerous when you heat it and you breathe the vapors. It gets into you, and then you're done. In this case, it was a liquid. It was cool. I had a rubber glove on. A very tight surgical glove that I painted to match Whitney Houston's skin color. And then I just reach my hand in and take it out. So we didn't have to worry about her thinking, "Oh, whoa, what is this?" And trying to.
Because it was, and it didn't turn into little balls. Because doesn't it do that?
No, because it was in a big a table that I lined with latex to make it into a pool.
How long did
Uh,
it take you to because to do it is one, but to design it, create it, test it, to make sure.
yeah,
How long did I mean? Again, weren't you afraid of
you
something
know,
going wrong in the R&D of it leaking somewhere?
yeah. Well, I have a week to prep for something like this, even though it only takes a second on camera.
Yeah,
There's the building the table and building the well where it's deeper than the most of it could be very shallow, so you're not using a lot of mercury. It only needed to be deep on that table in the part where the hand protrudes, so you use the least amount of mercury possible.
can I ask?
And
And you made the joke about this, but I'm
yeah,
the losing your hair and
what hair?
was it in a fire or is it an alopecia or why don't you have
Yeah,
any?
yeah, I have alopecia. So when I was 19, 20-ish, my hair started to fall out, little patches of this, and then the patches grow until they all connect and there's no hair left. So this has created a very fire resistant aerodynamic effect for me.
True.
Uh, and it makes you more, you stand out a little bit. And then when I see you, 3 days ago or so, like Dave, I saw your producer, and he says, "Oh, I remember you." Now, probably if I was just another hairy gray guy,
Beast, you wouldn't think of it because let me ask
Steve.
you though. You
Yeah.
mentioned Tom Cruise was a nice person, or
Yes,
seemed
he
like
is.
that.
Yep.
And what did you do for him? What did you what?
I was the special effects coordinator on a movie called The Firm, which was the first of the John Grisham books.
Yeah.
And great book, great script, great director, Sidney Pollack, and got to work with Tom. And what a treat that was. This guy is the consummate professional. First guy on the set, always knows his lines, polite to everybody he works with. He hears any complaint on the set. He sees some guy going, "Ugh, these hours are killing me. Let me get a massage therapist over there." Hired a massage therapist to just walk around and rub the crew's shoulders. He heard somebody complain about the food. He paid for the top catering company in the world, I think 4 Stars Cater, to come and take over catering for the movie. He wanted everybody on the set to be happy. He said, "Look, I show up, I do a hard job, and I put everything into it. And you guys are doing the same, and you guys should get compensated. All right, maybe not financially quite as well,
Not quite as
but
much.
the right, your good
So
food,
basically, you're saying
you're happy, right?
basically to
A,
make
re-
everything
a
look
real mensch, And the most impressive thing I saw working with him was his commitment to perform at his definition of best, not at what other people would have accepted from him. So we finished a scene, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 takes, and the director's happy, says, "All right, good, that's good, moving on." And that's great. Tom could have just gone back to his trailer and had lunch or whatever, but he says, "No, I think I could have done that better." And he stays, and we do it again because it wasn't up to the standard that he wanted, even though everyone else would have been happy with it. And I thought that was so informative. That's really informed the way I work now. Like, work to your standard, not to what you think you could get away with or what other people are happy with.
Now, else are either actors or directors that you're like, yeah, they were great. They really know that, or very kind people. Who
Thoughtful people, Sidney Pollack was certainly in that. Gene Hackman, amazing to work with.
Oh, really? It's so nice to
A
hear.
very subtle actor. You'd see him come and he'd do a scene. It was like, what did he do? He just stood there and said something. It looked like nothing. And then you watch all the little nothings put together in the end, and he had painted a beautiful portrait of this character. But
And what
just,
film was he? What did you do for that film?
that was the same movie. So The
Oh,
Firm was just full. You had, you had Tom Cruise, you had Holly Hunter, you had Gene Hackman, you had, a lot of amazing talent on that. I guess on any movie of a Tom Cruise sized budget, you're going to see a lot of talent across the board in front and behind.
I'm trying to remember the firm. I don't remember great special effect pirate things blowing up. Kind of, it was basically in a law firm, and he gets creepy and whatever. Is there a
Yeah.
car chase? What did you have to do
Yeah.
special effect wise for the firm?
Yeah, right. So you would think like, what's, that's not a big action film, right? It's a more thriller, psychological, whatever. I think there were close to 140 effects in there. And an
Like
effect could
what?
be,
Yeah.
it could be something as simple as someone walks up to the elevator and they push the button and the light comes on. Okay, well, it's not a real elevator, right? We're sitting on a set, so that has to be rigged. Or you're waiting for the elevator and you're staring up and you're seeing the needle thing go, telling you what floor it's on, right? I'm sitting there with a little rheostat and I'm controlling this motor and I'm moving the needle. And this way the director could say, can the elevator move a little faster, a little slower? Can the paper come out of the fax machine? I don't want it to go like this. I want it to go.
We don't even think
Fall,
of this in terms
think
of.
right.
Uh,
But if the script says like a paper, comes out of the machine, it rolls up, it falls on the floor and rolls under the table. Well, I don't know any paper trainers out there, right? So you've got to figure out how you're going to make it, pre-curl, hit the floor. I drilled little holes in the floor at an angle that we could run air compressor to, so that when it hits the floor, it rolls under the table. So like there's all these subtle little things you'd never think of. It's not
no, because
just
you figure,
yeah.
coming out of like Dave came out of film school and stuff. Like you figure, oh, we need a fax machine. All right, go use it. I'll bring it here, and whatever the speed the thing comes out, it's a fax. Who would
Yeah,
have
so there's not even a phone line to hook the fax machine up to.
right.
So yeah, to take the fax machine, you take it apart, you remove the guts, you put in your own motor, you run the motor back to your own controller, and then you load it with paper. And when the guy says a fax is coming in, you hit the little button on your controller, and that makes the little light flash. And you ask the director, do you want the little flashing light to be green, red, orange, yellow? And you have all the spare LEDs ready so you can swap it out. So the idea is really just give the director creative control over everything that they could control. And then you give them choices, right?
As stunned as as absolutely like, in wonder and awe and astonishment at what goes into movie making and the thought that goes into every single element, which is like
It's a lot.
they just
You see the elevators open, right? You've been in an elevator and the elevator opens, but sometimes the elevator's just, finishing leveling down
right.
as the doors are opening. Like, again, there's no elevator. We build a box on the set, and then I set the box onto 4 tires, inner tubes, and they have hoses coming out of them with a regulator. And then when I'm on one door and my brother's pulling the other door open, to create that effect, and then I hit the button and it lets the air out, and you see the elevator finish going. Shh.
And the reason,
and again, these things are subtle. No one ever says, "Oh, what amazing effects!" But the same amount of work goes into it, whether it's explosions or something silly.
I mean, this is just so. Do you still, by the way, run or coordinate this place called Stunt Ranch?
Stunt Ranch still up and running in Austin, Texas. It's a theme park. Basically, you can come and you could be a stunt mensch for a day, or a stunt woman, and it's for corporate team building. So Googles and Facebooks and companies like this. It's like, what are we going to do for fun this summer or this winter? How are we going to do a big team building thing? So they'll come. Everybody gets to jump off a tower from an explosion, ride a zip line, shoot stuff. It's exciting. You get to live out your Hollywood fantasy for a few hours.
Beats the shit out of us.
And then go back to being a coder or whatever they do.
Now, how would you have handled, or how would you have kept what happened to Alec Baldwin happening to Alec Baldwin? Just like, don't.
Well, nothing happened to Alec Baldwin. He just got served with papers. But a lot happened to Helena Hutchins. She died.
You're right.
So in the scale of magnitudes, screw him.
You know what I'm saying? Okay.
Yeah. So, enough. But I could tell you what happened there is that, it really came down to almost the same thing as the Hindenburg hubris, right? Thinking that you know more than you know, thinking that you can control dangerous things when you don't have the knowledge to go about it properly. And I did a special for the Discovery Channel about the Hindenburg. And boy, the parallels were incredible, right? When someone says, don't fill that thing with hydrogen blows up. And you look back and you say, well, maybe for your inferior minds who do not know how to control the hydrogen, but for the brilliant Nazis, we can do this, yeah? So, all right, well, it turns out they were wrong. So when someone goes to Alec Baldwin or any other actor and says, hey, I'm the armor, I'd like to show you how to use this gun. It's kind of a specialty piece of equipment. It's a single action gun. It's not what you're probably used to. You don't say, I got this. I've been doing this for 30 years. You know, you're not going to tell me how to work this gun. All right, well.
Or check if it's loaded.
Or check it, right? See what's in it, right? And it's, oh, well, I don't check guns. You know, I rely on my crew for that. Well, how are you relying on your crew when your armorer is not even in the room, right? And you take the gun from Dave Halls, who's the first AD, who has no business touching the gun and who yells cold gun. This guy had a reputation for cutting safety corners A to Z, you know, just to make the movie go faster so they could get a couple more shekels. And there's no way to run a set. Somebody died because of it. Well, if you pick up a gun, you are responsible for what happens with that gun. It doesn't matter who you think loaded it, who made the ammo, who whatever. The gun's in your hands, you're responsible. So if you don't know how to check it, you bring someone over and you say, please open this up. Show me what's in here. Either show me that it's empty, show me that these are dummy rounds, show me that these are blanks, because I don't want to hurt anybody. And I know Alec did not want to hurt anybody, right? I saw footage from the day before where he's saying, like, hey, could you stand on the other side of the camera? I don't want to point the gun at you. So like he had, but the thing is, you can't follow the gun rules on a Monday and not follow them on a Tuesday, right? They're called rules, not suggestions, right? They're rules because if you don't follow them, people die.
Well, and so, what is the closest that you ever had to contend with something going seriously wrong, even on a set that you were involved with? You set things up, but either, you know, some things happen or some mistake or something. So what's the closest you've gotten to you're getting hurt or someone getting hurt and shit gone bad?
Yeah. So, you know, got to own your mistakes, right? And this is on a movie I did the effects for. It was called what the heck was it called? Hustle and Flow.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
So Hustle and Flow, they come out of a bar at night. It's raining. And so we have these rain towers. So think of it like a giant tripod that you push up into the air, right? And then it's got a little nozzle on it that, you know, shoots water out and it makes it look like it's raining.
How wrong can that go? All right.
Right. So, yeah, right. So if you have a distributed head, you know, where it shoots rain in all directions, when you turn on the water, the force goes equally out and the tower stands still. In this case, the towers were at the side of the set, so we were using angled rain nozzles that just, you know, push forward. Well, you push the water this way, it pushes the tower this way. And they had not given me budget to have my own assistant operating the water flow. They said, look, just use one of the PAs. You know, we don't have the budget to bring this whatever in to give you an assistant. When this PA turned on the water flow, he turns it on full flow. Woof! The rain tower goes back. This 30-foot steel tower, you know, slams down into the ground. You know, this close to the director. So, you know, nobody got hurt, but you know, those things, they stick with you forever, and they make you, you know, more safe. I was going to say more paranoid because that's actually appropriate, right? Professionally paranoid, meaning you're always thinking what could go wrong, what could go wrong, what could go wrong. You're looking around with this constant eye towards safety. So, you know, the tower, now when I put up the towers, we use shroud lines, we secure everything so that nothing could move. You know, you learn from these mistakes.
Absolutely.
And that's that. But
also, the thing was full of water. I mean, I can imagine it falling backward and then water going all over equipment and causing shorts and things like that too.
Probably not great.
But yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah. So
let me ask you. I mean, this has just been such a fabulous conversation with Steve Wolf. I do want to say that one of the things on your resume of things that you've done, things that you were totally unrelated. You were a private eye.
I was, you know, I was going to college and looking for a, you know, after school job. And I had met this guy as a private investigator, and he says, "Hey, you want to, work for me?" He's like, "Sure. What do we do?" "We investigate crap." And I said, "All right, well, I'm naturally curious. So making a living being curious sounds interesting." So it turns out it was like a real bogus job. It's not, it's not like I'm following spies on the bridge and whatever. It's basically like somebody ran their Hertz rental car into another car 7 years ago, and they filed a claim against Hertz and now budget or whoever, and now you got to find out where's the guy live, were there witnesses, do we get down and stay. So you're just like basically driving all over the Bronx, Staten Island, whatever, trying to run down these leads on these silly little stale cases to find this guy, get a statement, whatever. That's probably the bulk of the work, right? It was not fascinating, but then I used that skill later when I started a company called Trial Films. And so Trial Films is based on the idea that when you go to trial, we're talking about something that happened, right? Your stove blew up, your car flipped over, whatever. Well,
or your stove flipped over and your car blew
your
up.
stove flipped over and you're right. So something, something went wrong. You fell off a climbing wall, whatever. Well, and now you're suing somebody because you got hurt. So when you go to court, your fate is in the hands of 12 people who couldn't figure out how to get out of jury duty. This is the unfortunate truth. I know we have a civic obligation, but most people don't want to do it because in most cases it's silly, and you get $10 an hour and the parking costs 20, right? So the idea was, if we could make a movie, like a little 5-minute, America's Most Wanted style reenactment of what happened to the client, then we could show that to the jury, and then they would understand, oh, that's how the pilot light thing works in an oven. Now I understand why it blew up. Oh, that's how belaying works in the climbing gym. That's why when the guy was using the gree instead of the figure 8, they fell off the wall and broke their spine.
But
so
are judges allowing this? Because it's very
so they do. Yeah, no. Well, in the beginning, the judges were getting in the middle of it, like, should we let this? This could be prejudicial. But pretty soon the judges said, look, it's not our job to decide what evidence each side presents. You present what you want, and the jury will figure it out in the middle. But what I realized is that people believe what they see on TV much more than what that lying lawyer or that paid engineer sitting there says. Now, so anyway, I used my PI background to investigate these cases, figure out what happened, read through 10,000 pages of depositions, write a 5-minute script, at a 5th grade level, and then go out and film that. And now the jury gets exactly that's how that firearms accident happened. So I'm actually working on the Baldwin case right now. I'm making one of those movies. So I'm working as the plaintiff's expert witness. And
I have no idea when I asked that question. You shouldn't be talking to me about that. I mean, there's no gag order.
There's no secret there. Even if there was well, first of all, I'm not Trump, so I don't have a gag order because I don't say nasty things about people who are just trying to do their job.
Oh, I do.
And right.
I have a gag reflex. That's different.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. So, and for me, the priority is that nobody else should get hurt. Right. Bad enough that Alec Baldwin has killed 50% of the people who were ever killed with firearms on set. If there's
Eric Hexum.
Well, he shot himself, right?
Yeah.
And then Brandon Lee, who was killed on the set of The Crow.
That was it.
Again, the armorer stepped off set, left his wife in charge, and something went wrong. So gun safety is simple. I don't know if you play with guns at all or, play. Okay. But there's 4 rules of gun safety, right? All guns are always loaded. Never point a gun at anything you don't want to destroy. Keep your finger off the trigger until the sights are on the target, and be sure of your target and what's beyond. That's it. Those 4 rules cover everything about gun safety, and you can't hurt somebody accidentally without breaking at least one of those rules. Yeah. So if you treat the gun like it's not loaded, and then you point at someone and you put your finger on the trigger and you're pointing it at something that's not the target, you're breaking all the rules, and it's inevitable that someone's going to die if you do that. So
let me Let me
you
ask
know,
you,
yeah.
as we wrap up our conversation with the wonderful Steve Wolf here, I don't know how when you sleep or how you do everything that you manage to. I mean, you've got still the stunt ranch going. Are you still doing effects for movies, or you kind of
You
step?
know, once in a while, if there's if I can day play on a movie, you know, hey, we just need to blow up this car when there's whatever, fine, I'll fly in, I'll do that, I'll be home the same night. But really, working on Team Wildfire is my 100% job. You know, I'm the CEO of the company now, and it's like a real thing. You know, we've got investors' money. They put a little over $3.5 million into this.
Yeah.
So, and plus this will save a lot of lives.
But with your
Because
career, the way your life has gone, do you see this still? I mean, you'll still be there in 5 years, but will you have moved on to create some? Is there some other thing that you're sitting up at 4 a.m. at the drawing board, going, this is next?
Yeah, that's not avoidable, Rabbi. You
Yeah.
know, it's some people are wired to just look at the world as a series of problems and feel some sense of obligation or creativity or curiosity to figure out how to solve them.
All right, peace in the
So,
Middle East. You go. You have
show me the map again. Right.
We've been talking with the delightful
Yeah.
Steve Wolf here in the neighborhood. So remember also, if you want to go to the Stunt Ranch, this is in Austin, is it?
Yeah, Stunt Ranch is there. If you want to follow what we're doing at Team Wildfire, it's pretty fascinating. We're at teamwildfire.com. And we have a YouTube channel at youtube.com/Team Wildfire. And we post, pretty regularly the scientific advances as we make them. So when we're testing the mist chamber that puts the mist into the exhaust, right? We post that. When we're testing different types of foam, different types of retardant, different size jet engines, different size vehicles for getting up the little paths into the trees. You could kind of follow that journey. And so we're looking forward to deploying these on fires and, stopping people from dying, losing their homes, losing their businesses. It's costly and tragic. And I think, like you said, we put a man on the moon, we send probes to space, we go to the bottom of the ocean. We should be able to blow out a fire.
Yeah, I mean, somebody's smoking a cigarette on an elevator. I'm standing next to them. I've had, deli for lunch. I break wind. How do we stop the conflagration that ensues when, my air hits the match? And
right. And that is precisely why they banned smoking indoors and on elevators.
Absolutely, because of me.
Secondhand explosions from deli gas.
It is. Steve Wolf, just an absolute, and one of the best guests absolutely ever. TeamWildfire.com is the website, TeamWildfire.com. I, of course, wish you luck. I hope they take your idea next time, next summer in friggin' Canada or LA or Seattle or wherever, and use it and employ it so that we lose 10 acres instead of 1,000 acres or whatever.
Exactly. And it's
it's
my plan to turn these things into robots, and we send them in to fight the fire, and the firemen stay home and live to celebrate the next Hanukkah with their family. Happy Hanukkah coming up tomorrow.
Is that your? Are you have your last name is Wolf? Are you tribal or what are you?
I'm MOT.
Remind me that
member of the tribe, right?
Yes,
all the codes, right?
I knew I liked you for other reasons besides your intelligence and your good heart and your good things. He's also a Yidel. How can you not love him? Steve Wolf,
Thanks, Mishpaka.
Thank you so much for being in the day. You're fantastic. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Rabbi.
Have a good one. Happy holidays to you too.
And to you. Good Yontif.